West Side. And it was the 6th one he has conducted in the last 6 or 7 days. And he is just plumb outright exhausted. Very interesting that today, down in Washington, D.C. is National American Indian Day. And I believe it's at the White House. There is a ceremony taking place because Obama was adopted by one of the Indian tribes a couple of years ago. And they're performing a ceremony to complete that adoption, I believe it is. And now my dear friend Warfield Moose was invited to do the ceremony he conducted with us last night at the White House for Obama, but chose to be with us, the people. So interesting. We felt honored, and he was going to be on today's show as well, instead of being at the White House with Obama. So interesting. It is only, and I know he would prefer me to say it this way, and it's true, it's only from sheer exhaustion. He was shuttling between Geneva, Switzerland, L.A., and New York, maybe even Italy thrown in there, over literally the last week to 10 days, and he has been doing this ceremony. It's incredibly arduous. It's awesome what he did in this UEB ceremony. He is wrapped up in a blanket and tied in a very hot, totally black space, blackened, darkened space, and sings and prays on behalf of us all. And our energy is helping to support him through love and respect, and amazing things happen in that space on an energetic level. So, Warfield, we welcome you back on another occasion. In the meantime, I want to turn our attention to my dear friend, Joe Friendly, who's been kind enough to come into the studio. Do you have your camera set up, Joe, on us, or?
I couldn't do us, so I picked me.
Oh, you're better looking, so you made a good choice.
Well, no, I did surprise you just there. I am making the claim that I have figured out what everyone should go listen to right now, me. But I just wanted to kind of prove it by answering the question you posed of, what do we do about it? How do we articulate the change we need? And I have been working on just that particular problem while other people are steering their bus around the corner. I'm worrying about how we can better articulate.
Asleep at the wheel.
So,
please.
I think it's revolution through articulation. There are just some basic principles that as a whole people we should hear out loud and say yeah to. And it does come down to the ideals of a democracy in many ways, that we are just a sham democracy. So we have to announce out loud what's wrong. And one of the things is...
Which is a democratic action.
But I'm offering some nuance here and there in language. And in particular, I say we should address ourselves to rescuing our culture from commercialism. And while we're at it, Christianity, but in particular commercialism. And that takes some talking to, but it has to be identified that our system is basically corrupt. That's the word. We have a corrupt situation.
This is news to me, Joe. When did you discover this?
Well, I mean, using this kind of language. And in other words, I have I wear these different political hats. I letter on a white baseball cap. So one of them says, give truth a chance. And
Joe, as I told you all, is the producer of a really wonderful MNN TV show, Monday through Friday at 9:30 in the morning, channel 34 on Time Warner, called Truth for a Change.
Yeah, oh, that's a good point. And I've been walking around with that hat, wondering what people are thinking when they see it, frankly. Because I had something quite specific in mind, and that is the 9/11 truth. But just watching the people stare at it and then make different faces, the faces were throwing me the variety. Because I like to read faces, but that time...
Your ability to read was thrown off. I just happened to have rented a film DVD of Reverend Billy
Uh-huh.
called "What Would Jesus Buy?" Now, I think many of the audience know who Reverend Billy is, and he's got the choir,
He is
The
definitely
stop
a warrior
consumering
against the
consumption choir.
but if we could imagine a before and after in terms of rescuing our culture, if it were rescued, then it would be serving the truth as a important ingredient for actual democracies to be. And so we have to, as a whole people, face the con game of capitalism versus socialism. That
Yeah, that definitely is.
The bad guys control the culture to the extent, and the media, that is what has to be changed.
So
And
in a practical way then, since you so boldly announced a solution, and I have them too, but I'm not as bold as you, so
Oh.
I'm learning.
that solar energy conference.
Yeah, but tell me, how does one turn the corner on the commercialism of our culture? To start with, then we'll move into Christianity.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. It comes down to this: we can identify the ways of the business world, commercialism. It's one thing, as a way fundamentally lacking in morality. And what we're aiming for as the before and after, the after part, after the revolution, what we're aiming for is a moral social order with truth prevailing. And right now we have a corrupt imitation of that. But let's at least keep our eye on the prize, that's what we're supposed to be aiming for. And to the extent religion gets in the way, then let's face that reality. That religion gets in the way of morality.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because the difficulty is that Christianity poses as our moral conscience.
It does do that posing. And there is an author.
I would dare say imposing.
Anyhow, Christianity is a puzzle that I think we have to solve as a people. It's a con game. There's an author, Chaim Maccabee, whose book about it goes on Amazon sometimes as high as $200. But I got one for $25. What can you do?
What a deal.
I bought 40 at one point and passed them out to all my friends. And then I talked to the author.
I wasn't included.
But anyhow, what he does is he gets into, he had what do they call it, a carrel in the Oxford Library for years and years, and he wrote lots of books from the old rare books. And he's an authority on the time of Jesus. And apparently, the people were deliberately manipulated by the introduction of paganism into the Roman Empire as something to replace Judaism and other competing religion. So Christianity is a step back from the general idea of religion in particular. I mean, the value of Judaism, I would say up front, is the assertion of monotheism. That it took a blur of gods and said, we can focus on a point. And that point is what's up for grabs right now. And the point is basically authority itself. So in a democratic way, we can, as a people, say, authority, we claim it. And since I'm making the announcement, we could be even more clever and offer a way of actually getting past the ambiguity of democracy and actually being able to aim for the light, because that has been another important ingredient besides democracy.
Truth and light. I agree. I have posed the thing in this way, Joe, that I really consider people to be centers of light, centers of intelligence, like the sun, but the sun has been obscured by clouds, and we cannot see the truth behind the clouds. We sense it, we feel it, but we don't know quite how to directly cognize what we feel. And the truth occurs oftentimes as an actual neurophysiological sensation where we go, aha. Why a neurophysiological sensation? Because we are but transmitters and receivers in a larger, how do I put it, galactic field. And so we're picking up information. And we have some observer nature that can say, yes, this is it. or no, that's not it. It doesn't accord, it doesn't align. And when we say align, we mean including in our spinal cord knowledge, information, intelligence. Is it true? Is it not? We are the ultimate discerners. Now, if we are able to see that we're facing clouds, we can be willing to say that we're ignorant and we're suffering from confusion. I think that we can turn a corner rather easily by kindness and the natural principle of cooperation, where each person is looking out for the other as well as self. Another phrase I use in this regard is enlightened self-interest. It is in my interest that you are happy, Joe. It is in my interest.
Wait, what a place to change, what?
And not just you, but literally everybody. And if we all came from that place, we could have there, with listening, a different world.
I got the whole thing for you. The whole thing. No, actually, it sounded a little presumptuous to say I got the whole thing. Look, Joe, there's other people. Don't be a pig about it.
I have a whole challah for you.
But since I'm a practitioner in the phraseology of the Revolution Department, at moments we just go ahead and...
Cambridge University? I didn't know they had a Revolution Department.
Cambridge was the guy who shot down Christianity, Chaim Maccabee.
Yes, I know.
Anyhow, his books, he has all kinds of books. I was in the Union Theological Seminary bookstore, and I saw lots of his books, and I said, wow,
place.
A popular guy here.
Yeah.
And they said, well, some of his is assigned reading. He has he credits Paul with the invention of Christianity. He has a whole book, Paul the Mythmaker. And just to read these as a whole people, I think would kick us up a notch, that we are in fairy tale land when we should be anchoring morality into something deep in our heart, like you're talking about.
Exactly. I think it's a function of the heart/nervous system.
Right.
You know, because I promised our audience that you would speak with us. First, I did say a political review, which is happening to some extent. It looks like more of a morality discussion, which is fine, like a morality.
Well, I'm trying to prove
but
that
I also offered that you would speak with us about the significance of birthdays.
Oh, you did?
I did!
Okay, man.
They're waiting for the birthday boy.
Okay, well, you know, it just freaked me out a little bit when you said that coming up is the Study of Cycles Club for real. And, wait, what? I didn't apply. I can talk. I got for you the whole thing. Basically, what I have offering here is a solar engine to power the revolution based on the study of solar energy cycles in the form of getting excited about birthday as amounting, here we go, birthday amounts to the phase, which is one of the three dimensions, phase, amplitude, and frequency. It's phase of the number one cycle of them all. It is the cycle of the number one most important thing in all of life. What is that one thing? The most important is the sun. It is the center of our energy system, and so for importance, come on, the sun does rate number one. Okay, so the sun sends its energy over to us. You can measure it calories per square centimeter or watts per meter, but you can measure it. And if you ignore the clouds, then you get a very smooth, not very, but at least a smooth sine cycle. And to me, as someone who studied electronics and engineering and Rudy Toot Toot and hung out with the Nobels, anyhow, sine cycle is the building block of our scientific culture. In electronics, it's the number one working tool for solving equations. You throw everything into sine cycles and boing, it's like a comb. But anyhow, it boils down to looking at the flow of energy, the time function, to use language from mathematics, but that's a very basic proposition, time function of our relationship with old number one, the sun, and to freak people out. I won't go there now, but so I won't freak you out, Jeff. Keep moving along here. So our relationship to the sun is a sine cycle of it goes from about 200 calories per square centimeter per day at the end of December, in that period, up to the high point of 800 to 900 calories per square centimeter per day, June 21 and such.
So you're saying this is a solar weight loss program?
I'm saying that birth date, by amounting to a dimension of this sine cycle. I mean, how can I put it? When you get to the rank of dimensionality, then you're talking about an index that is profound, and therefore I can use language like a compass, that it is a profoundly orienting thing. And to jump immediately to politics, that what I'm talking about is if we actually try to achieve an actual democracy as opposed to a feudal thing we got now, in which we're not bossed around, but we actually have to think together efficiently as people, then it would be handy to have a compass.
To see that. By all means.
But we need a compass.
A direction. So on a practical level, how does your view of birthdays as solar-based and the importance of the sun relate to a person's life?
Well, let me just say what Confucius says. He said, when a society has outgrown its social forms, it can make an efficient transition to appropriate forms through the agency of an extraordinary individual, first managing to gather the people by demonstrating the value of accurately measuring the seasons. So there's a tie-in between revelations about birth date and articulating the appropriate social forms. And in 1970, I said, I wrote a book, The Birthday Phenomenon and Radical Change. So that was in 1970.
Very interesting.
So I've been thinking about it.
You've been thinking about it. So can you illustrate
well, here's
with
the
an
big
example?
One. I'll give you a big one. The big revelation is simply to arrange in a particular bar, particular birthdays to meet each other. And if you were in a room with a whole bunch of people of your birthday, boing, there's revelation. And if you were to face the fact that you groove with people 6 months from their birthday, male or female, it's just you'll appreciate each other's minds. And this is a system evolved, that nature has evolved us as a dimension of variability. It's a circular variety of humanity, a full variety of ways of being human beings. And that word being and human being, now you know why it's there. It's different ways of being human.
What the question is, what is the meaning? And grooving on a mind is a great thing, but what can someone listening take from this conversation?
There is so much, but I'll give you one little quick piece.
Yeah.
The Bible actually gets into it, even though they have contempt for astrology, and what they offer as their lesson about what we're talking about is the revelation that Aquarius period, that period January, February, is where we should look for people who have a talent in being judges. And I have checked it out, and indeed they're correct. That when you talk to these people, they are the ones we should make our judges.
Interesting. As an example, and then are you saying you go through the zodiac in order to...
I do. I have
so
to
you're
apologize for
utilizing.
that. I did scientific studies where I tried to break it up by month versus by sign to see is there some handle, and they both break different ways. It depends on what you're looking for.
So is this an evolution in the revolution?
Well, to answer your question about how much astrology this is, I apologize for it sounding like astrology. The whole idea is to
You don't have to apologize at all. I just want the truth.
I want to rescue birthday from the ideas of astrology.
Okay, but yet astrology has a direct underpinning in what you do.
Oy, what can you say? Thank you.
For the next time, Joe. Joe, thanks a lot for coming in.
This has been fun.
This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to attend the conference, go to my website, abetterworld.net, under events. Join our newsletter at the same place. Call us, be in touch, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Also, November 22nd at 5 o'clock, it looks like I'll be on for callers only. So join us in a new effort of PRN to come forward and meet the audience directly. Thanks so much, Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World, and I'll see you all next week.
have to step in, good show, and make an announcement
Fine,
right this
absolutely.
second. So just if you could
Rabbit.
be quiet, that would be helpful.
I'll try.
Please be quiet. Hi, this is the Program Director of Progressive Radio Network, and we are looking for an engineer for one day on Sundays starting November 22nd. If you are a qualified radio engineer, please give me a call at 646-307-4482. It's for our call-in shows on Sundays. Thanks so much, and now enjoy Eric Davis. Eric with Expanding Minds. Let's expand my mind so I can remember what the name of that show is. Thanks, you guys.
Absolutely.
So when's your birthday?
Not today.
Wait a minute.
Hey, can I be in this cycle thing?
You said. What do you mean, can you be in it?
I mean, I want to, have a piece from that, Ladies and gentlemen, everybody listen to Joe. No, something? I don't
It's
know.
in Albuquerque.
Oh, that's a problem. I've already.
Little detail.
How close are they to what I'm talking about?
Solar influence is significant.
But have we evolved to have a
But I don't think that their analysis is limited to solar influence.
but within that, okay, I'll say the limited, like I'm picking on astrology and all that. Okay, but
what's interesting, if I understood what you were saying in that example about Aquarius,
yeah.
is that astrology was corroborating your point of view.
Yes and no. I agree with you. You got me there. That in fact the sun sign stuff I'm basically saying yes to. Except I'm also saying don't get nailed by the symbolism, like to throw you too far. And that's the problem. The symbols I'm complaining about. But the general proposition for sure my complaint against astrology is that they say now that you've stepped into the tent, let me talk about your rising sign and the planets, and I think that is a waste of attention.
I see. But what's interesting is the fundamental premise you accept.
Yeah.
And are you then saying that there are not appreciable effects of the other floating bodies in space on an individual psyche?
Yeah, I say they're irrelevant. They don't do anything worth worrying about, as far as I can tell.
That's a key phrase, that last phrase, as far as you
Well,
can
yeah,
tell.
I mean, I don't
No,
I haven't even looked at it much. But
Exactly.
I
This
think
is
it's just preposterous.
I backed off the whole conversation with you quite some time ago because you were so peremptory in your view. Love you as I do and respect you as I do.
Yeah, I know, that was the problem.
It was clear to me that you had not thought through and really gotten apprised of the body of astrology. And I can appreciate what you're saying and appreciate the wisdom of astrology. Just to give you an example, one of the smartest women I've ever met, Joe, is the author of this book, The Astrology of 2012 and Beyond, Cal Garrison. Really interesting woman. She puts a tremendous amount of emphasis on asteroids, smaller than planets. Whoa. So if you really, from a scientific point of view,
Haven't even considered it.
how could it be?
Yeah.
How could it be that only one celestial body, the sun, is exerting an effect on our psycho-emotional physical lives and not the other bodies?
No, you know what this is like? This is good. This is a debate, and you're defending all the other little bodies. And
We the bodies! I'm here to defend the bodies of space against the solar god. It's good. We'll cultivate new archetypes out of this conversation. But no, just on a...
No, seriously, that's my argument, is that what we're talking about is once you realize what's really going on. See, when they were appreciating what the sun was doing, they were looking at the zodiac signs there saying it's something going on between those stars that's doing it. You know? It wasn't that we got more sun in our faces, and that changes the way our nerves arrange them. But no, let me say it more basically.
Yeah, sure.
I cop to the sun signs. But the planets, in terms of influencing the things that I study, they have no role in that. Zero.
Oh,
they don't
story.
affect temperature, and they don't
Right.
affect light.
Right.
They do not.
So
So what's left for them to do?
Pardon the expression.
All right, so
I think the comment about light is a sound comment.
Thank you. So what is there left for the planets to do if they don't affect temperature and light, which is why I'm saying the sun signs are working? Okay, now all they can do, there's two choices what they can do. They can do things to the sun, so that then the sun says, oi, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. The planets, they ganged up to me. Hit, they pull, I couldn't do it.
Venus was driving me crazy. Do you know what it's like? I have to deal with Venus?
I got a lot of storms. Now, I can imagine the sun does have incredible amounts of instability. There are solar storms that are sexy in slow motion, but there is like chaotic violence going on in the sun. So to that extent, there could be a provocation of a storm. There could be relatively quiet periods, which would modulate how much solar energy goes from the sun to us, which is the old time function. That's what we're talking about, rate per time, or not just rate, the amount per time. That's what we're talking. The birthday factor is the amount of sun you get when along a timeline, right? And my main complaint about the rest of the stuff is that there is something much more important than the planets that astrology ignores.
Yes, the asteroids.
No. Just again. I'll give you another choice.
Yeah, black holes.
Time's up. The answer is,
I think
what
that's
goes
the
on
answer.
in the home?
Hmm?
What goes on in the home? You know, in the house where you're living, the baby, when the baby is growing, what are the signs in the house? What's the mother's sign and what's the papa's sign?
What is the interaction of the signs?
And that is what tells you how one person is different from another.
How can you say that astrology doesn't deal with that? It deals with it all over the place. And that's,
Well, I know. I mean, when they, in other words, throw out the planets and let's just talk about your mama is this and your papa is that, then that's you, baby.
that's one, let's say, I don't want to use the word diminished, but one restricted lens.
But I'm saying,
I think it's valuable.
But in other words,
I
it
think
has
it has
a
value.
limit. It has a limit. Yes,
That's
yes,
all
it has
I'm
a
saying.
limit. You
But
know? But I'm saying, as far as limits go, that the planet's got a limit. As far
From
as the
a purely
planets,
Newtonian point of view,
yeah,
it can't be possible
Yeah.
that the sun is the only body in space that is affecting outcomes on the planet Earth. It defies gravity. It defies physics. But I want to bring up another point.
Wait. Let me just try to picture what you're saying now.
Okay.
Here we have the Earth,
Here we have
and
the
the
Earth
Sun.
and a series of planets and other celestial bodies.
Now,
right?
why can't just the Earth turning and the going around the Sun, isn't that enough to life? That instead of that, we have to watch all these exciting motions of the lights at night.
Well, you know what? It's not a question of that. And I appreciate the humor. But
No, it's true. I mean, you got these lights moving around, and you're thinking, it's got to be important. Look, this one went from here to here. It used to be here. What's
I'll
going
give you
on
a
already?
couple of points. I'll give you a couple of points. One is, upon the discovery of a new planet in our solar system,
Yeah.
as happened with, and I'm far from an expert in this, by the way, but I've been studying it as an amateur in a way for some time, and I've known a number of astrologers, and I listen. That's basically it. So, but there seems to be a very strong correlation between the discovery of a planet such as Pluto
Yeah.
or Uranus and their effects start to show up. So it's interesting. Once the planet breaks into consciousness, human consciousness, all of a sudden the effects of that particular planet can be readily felt on this planet. And there's another point. So that's one interesting.
No, hold on. When the effect gets felt, okay.
When the planet is recognized in the scheme,
and you can tune in on the feeling. You're saying, right?
Yeah. First of all, it's astronomically discovered, and then yes, it's sort of like when you just discover a new word, and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere.
Right.
It's the same kind of phenomenon.
If I got it right now, what you're saying is, Joe, you're talking to a believer. Joe, I have already made a place in my whole psychic structure for the participation of all these kind of different things happening in the personality, which I was saying, all right, look, it changes the weather a little bit. She says, no, it's in personality. Now, when you get into you're inside me already, what, the moon is in the house with the Scorpio, and and the Uranus, and the Venus, and the Mars, and... Okay, now...
what you're saying is your Venus is up Uranus, right?
Well, I would argue that in the design of problem-solving apparatus and problem-solving concepts, if you're going to offer people a way of helping their mind think up better stuff by sorting life in an efficient, accurate, legitimate way, then if that is your responsibility, then distractions, false paths, big lies are not allowed. No, here's the problem with that. What's the connection? Okay, the planets do it, so we're just sort of holographically saying it must impress the sun somehow, and that bounces back at us?
That's what you're saying. You're saying that the effect of the planets are having a direct effect on the sun, and we're the indirect recipients of that effect.
So what's left, if you don't go that way, is that there's a pull from the planet on us?
No, I didn't get a chance to make my next point.
Excuse me, go for it.
That's okay. One is I just wanted to make reference to this notion of these correlations of when something breaks into human consciousness, its effect begins to be registered. And I know of that happening with those two planets at least, Uranus and Pluto.
But now there's two effects in particular. Go ahead.
Let me finish the point. The other is something that my good friend Rafi Nasser makes a point of, who wrote a book called Under One Sky, where he does a kind of scientific review of the 12 main schools of astrology by giving them a blind chart. You know, the name, I don't know if it's a name, but I think the name, but certainly the birth data. And then each of the representatives of the top 12 schools of astrology do an analysis of the chart. And then the woman that it was all about, who had the birth data, writes her own, in a sense, autobiography. And anyone can, on their own, look at and compare and contrast the relative accuracy or inaccuracy of the different 12 respective schools. It's really interesting. He did a wonderful job of it, and it's becoming sort of a classic in the field of astrology. But he says,
can you read that kind of stuff? I mean, you read the book?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't read it through because, but I read good amounts of it. Yeah. Not to mention he's a very close friend of mine, and I wanted to, get his mind. But he makes this point, Joe, and that is, we who have been stargazing and planet gazing for a long time, we are the ones, we are the authors, if you will. You mentioned authority before, and I agree. That to me is really, in a sense, the central issue of human life and human society, I should say. The issue of authority and who takes authority for what, and to whom do we attribute authority. That's a separate subject. But as it relates to this, we are the ones who have been imbuing and endowing the planets with our own psychological and emotional investment, as it were. It's not them necessarily just having an effect on us, but let's just say it's a co-creative process. Interesting.
Oh, well,
do you see?
Oh, that does open a window for me already. No, I got it.
Okay.
All right, so in other words, are you done? Or are you going to...
Yes, I am. No, okay. I made the point.
Well, then what you're saying is that it has cultural force because there are believers.
And psychological energy, human biological energy, gets invested So it almost becomes a.
You know, I didn't guess that one. I'm glad you
a
pointed
loop.
it out. I
Yeah.
didn't think of that thing. All
It
right.
goes both ways, is what I'm saying.
Okay, that's a
You
good
see?
one. Yeah,
It's interesting,
yeah,
huh?
all right.
And who's to say that the sun
I want to
isn't-
put them out of business, you understand? I want to say, look, no more of this. Don't quit believing all that because you're making a lot of trouble. You're getting people to worry about Venus and Mars, not to mention Uranus. So therefore, forget it. No,
But now you're understanding, and you know.
But I'm saying this. I'm saying that my complaint, I haven't said,
Sure.
is that it creates contradictions by adding additional signs to the plate. So they say, oh,
Layers
look,
of
you're an
complexity.
Aries,
Agreed.
but then your Scorpio tends to group
Offset.
off with some of that Cancer, also giving off. Now, once you get into that kind of thinking, that's what I was driving at when I was saying we have an obligation to give people a system of thought that they can think with, you know, and I can't buy it.
No, I appreciate that layers of complexity make the dialogue more.
But I'm
difficult.
saying this, if you want to introduce into your own sign additional signs to wrestle with, then use your parents and your older brother or your older sister.
I consider that very valid. So you have my vote.
Oh, well, I'll give you a hug.
You see, please do. I don't disagree. See, I consider what you're talking about is somewhat of a subset of the larger.
But I'm trying to win over the whole thing.
I know,
big
but
operator.
me, you're not succeeding. I appreciate, let's say, the nuances of both. And I don't want to make war, you know.
Oh,
love.
don't want to make
You know,
war.
I don't want. It's not one
You
or
hang
the
out
other.
with those guys.
It's actually, on some level, it's a both and.
But you know, I am curious. When I
So
finally
to me,
get,
it's a relationship of Newtonian to quantum physics.
so if I were to hire you as my PR guy, just for a couple hours, you know what I mean, $1,000 an
Oi.
hour, you know, give me
Oi.
a good deal.
Yeah.
So I say, how do I play it off? You know, I don't want to offend these guys up front, but you know, there are certain propositions where you believe one thing, and
What are we gonna
I
do?
wondered, but I am just sort of being out there right now. I mean, that's where it's
That's
at.
cool.
That's
You're
what
an
I
out
believe.
there kind of guy. You know?
The planets.
It's good.
I'll put it this way.
Mhm.
Having spent 4 years of college at a tech, oh, I can't even say that. I wish I could.
Engineering school.
In engineering, yeah, okay.
Just ask me
but the
anytime.
last 3 was at a different place than the first the 4.
So there were 2 places.
Another place. But anyhow, no, I hung around scientists, and you know, just intuitively, you develop. In fact, when people talk about, or actually, what I was thinking of when I was walking over here, what I wanted to get into was the relationship of science and truth. That we have the scientific method, but to tell you the truth,
Right.
Um,
Please.
that it's a scientific culture as well, and the scientific culture is just sort of certain premises floating around. You know, there's this.
Totally.
It's a school of thought, we could say.
Exactly. It is a religion, you could say.
Right.
That's a really interesting one.
So I wanted to.
I appreciate it.
To make it America's religion. Personally, I think that I'm welcoming people to choose that as a whole.
Oh, this is since we've come this far, because
Yeah.
I have to get downtown soon. But
Oh.
I wanna. But since we've gone this
Let
far,
me see a number. What? We're already at 38.
oh my God, it's almost the whole thing here.
No, whatever.
But Joe, this is something I bring up in
You
conversations.
don't think they're
like
recording
this.
this, do you?
No.
Okay.
Please do not. No, I'm kidding. Terence McKenna.
Yeah.
I'm a great fan of his. I interviewed him back in 1990 something or other, and I love the guy. And he is not a scientist, but he's a smart guy with a great amount of scientific knowledge. And he made a point, which has to do with the topography of time, is the way he put it. I believe he put it, or maybe I did.
All right. Well, that's all
It's
right.
an interpretation.
Yeah.
And its relevance to this conversation is
Sure.
this. Science appears to be scientific. However, in a very major dimension, one of the most major dimensions to be considered in any kind of scientific experiment, it is omitted. And what is omitted is what he or we are referring to as the topography of time, which is to say, An experiment conducted at 9 a.m. on Monday morning has different influences upon it than the same specific experiment conducted Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. or 2 weeks hence. The moon is in a different phase. The sun is in a different phase as well. Everything has changed, not to mention the people who might be conducting the experiments, because everything is subject to cycles. And let's just segregate time alone and the phases of the moon through the month. The effect on the outcome of the experiment will be altered, and this is not taken into consideration at all in scientific experiments, which means that virtually all experimentation is altered and skewed.
It's like
everything.
It's an assumption that time is irrelevant, but maybe it is.
The assumption that is made to date is that it is irrelevant, that almost like one size fits all. 9 a.m. Monday, 4 or 5 p.m. Thursday, Sunday 11. But we all know that there is a different subjective reality. There's a different feeling that we have at different times. Sometimes it correlates with the time. 3 o'clock in the afternoons for most people is very different than 8 a.m. for most people. A Saturday and Sunday have different qualitative feelings. Our attitudes, our moods, our emotions will be altered. And if we're conducting the experiment, or we're the subject in an experiment, will it have an effect? That's the question I guess I'm posing here. Interesting.
First of all, why? Why would it have an effect?
Will you tell me?
Well,
ask a woman who has beginning her cycle and what it's like in the beginning, middle of, and end of a month. And that's a very graphic display of the differences.
I guess what it comes down to is resonance. So it's an argument of resonance. So what resonates with what? What are the periodicities and frequencies involved?
Yeah.
And,
that's a fair way of putting it, yeah. But you get what I mean. It's just like...
But
and there are
even
other
though we're saying
pressure.
What
if it's happening on a high altitude or a low one, humidity. These are all different effects of scientific experiments that we don't control for. That's my point.
So this guy, Terence McKenna, he's the guy who said, "I caught you. You thought you did things."
He didn't elaborate on it as much as I have, because I
really?
really stopped to think about how that has skewed our scientific information. Now, it can be...
But hold on a second.
It can be included. It doesn't have to be.
But
it doesn't have to be that way. And this is where astrology might come in handy in a scientific perspective. The crowning point.
So what do you think about Aquarius for judges? Do you think they'd be good judges? You think so too?
I do.
Because I haven't seen that in astrology. I mean, I had to dig that out of Genesis.
You're not going to like this.
Why?
I'm a Taurus sun.
Yeah.
With an Aquarius ascendant.
Oh, wow.
And the ascendant is sort of like the personality.
I will say this. I will cop to this much. The annual sine wave has the same shape as the daily sine wave. So there is a daily one too.
Definitely.
Now your time of birth on that one could be a player. Oh, that's a thing too. Oh, we got this thing and that thing. Oh, it's a sine wave. We got a phase, and your birth sign is with that, and your rising sign is. But here's my problem with that. A lot of times when I'm arguing with people about the birthday vector, take it, Joe.
Go, baby.
I say, look, what I've discovered is that we have evolved to respond to time of year as nature's method of increasing variety with systematic differences in ways of being human. And what that translates to into mathematics and neurology is that in the middle of our heads is about 10% of our nerve cells invested into the function of being the central control network integrating neurology. And what happens is, upon birth, pretty much, it starts doing the deal. And what does it do? It says, okay, you got this part of your nervous system doing this, sending these chemicals over here, and and that one's over there. And that influences what? Okay, we'll connect that rising chemical over to this piece of nervous system that does the thing over there. And then in other words, it starts interconnecting all the pieces. And depending on what stimulation is going on, it connects the pieces differently. If you're feeling the pain of cold, and if it's dark, then it wires it up differently from this and that. Now, the light-sensitive organ in your head is caressed in its architectural arrangements, that the central control network, the cells themselves, they reach around as close as possible to the light-sensitive organ in your head, but they don't quite, they send a few, it's an independence. So it's like they respect the sun. They get as close as they can.
Without, yeah.
Okay, but the responsibility now, what's getting close is, what I'm talking about is the brainstem. And the brainstem kind of branches upward and gets bigger and fatter, and it starts to develop regions that have special names, in particular the hypothalamus, and that's the one that's reaching near the pineal gland. But it's really just sort of the crowning grooviness of this general central control network, the reticular activating system and all that kind of stuff. So that's where the birthday stuff is hanging out. There's a mechanism to say, it could be a different thing here from over there, and no, I'm going to think real hard and I'll go past my sign. Okay, buddy, lots of luck, but you just, now, I am calling for these revelations, though, where we experience it. And I am saying that 3 months apart aggravate each other pretty good. Like if you're in a prison system and you want to break down some ego, you can take a guy with 25 guys that have a birthday 3 months from his and to keep picking on him, that might work.
And so this is a question. You've mapped it out about where the correlations of harmony or disharmony are.
Absolutely.
In the 12 months.
Yeah. So, but 6 months apart is it. Boing. It's like there is so much joy to happen when two people have birthdays 6 months apart that have been deprived. And when I see the Craigslist ads saying, I like a guy who likes candlelight and has a good sense of humor, I'm thinking, you poor thing, you need to know it's the birthday 6 months from yours, and then he'll actually appreciate you even though you're funny looking.
Beautiful. No, this is beautiful data that you say, I appreciate what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, I think that it has a lot of value.
All we need to do is to visit the bars and say, look, we're going to have a birthday revelation here. Will you take the people born, the males born January 1 to January 10, and the women born July 1 to July 10. And that'll be your, and we just announced 365 different bars around town where the...
So, question. Is it by month or is it by day? In other words, if someone is born January 1st,
day,
6
you
months...
You can feel the day, because I'll put it this way. Here's the point.
Okay. June 1st.
If you've ever played around with the phenomenon of resonance itself, it is tight when it comes to frequency adjustment. Resonance improves your expectation as it gets better, so that you no, it's not there yet. There you go.
Okay, great. Exactly. That's what I was saying earlier in the radio show when I was talking about the refinement of our nervous system as radio transmitters,
right,
to discern the truth when the clouds clear from in front of the sun. Do you remember that part of you were here, right?
Okay. You can tune in on it.
So this is this similar thing. So when it's January 1st, June 1st, big resonance. So does that also then mean there are varying degrees going out 30 days in either direction? No, say just... So in other words, somebody January 1st and June 10th, be 10 degrees slightly out of complete sync in resonance. Do you see?
Do I see? The question, Your Honor, is
Of
do
course
I
you see.
Now, I will say this.
I know you see.
I don't have an actual answer. I mean, as recently as this
Don't
morning.
tell me.
As recently as this morning.
I'm having trouble believing this.
And this morning, I looked up the birthday of this woman I videotaped last night.
Uh-huh.
Because last night, I'm looking at her, studying her, I'm trying to get a handle on the birthday. I'm thinking, oh, she's...
Oh, I hope it's 6 months after mine. Oh, I hope. It's in a day.
Well, I wasn't doing that hope. I was thinking, I wonder if she has my mother's birthday.
I was just playing with you.
I was just wondering, and it turns out she's 9 days off from my perfect 6-month factor. So instead of September 10th, she's September 19th. Already, I think, oh, that's too far. No, that's no good, no. But I was just like, I didn't even know she was...
See, so what I'm raising is a very practical matter
And
here.
I'm thinking a couple of friends I know are the 19th. And
Yeah, right. Now you're a matchmaker.
But no, seriously, if you address it scientifically,
Yes.
then for sure there's a certain amount of slop, and it complicates us.
There's a margin of error.
All that kind of stuff. However, I do run into people who were like, as recently as last week, I ran into a guy, the cab driver. It was July 3rd, married to January 2nd. So I said, so, how's it going? And he backed me up that it was, except one thing he does say is when he blows his stack, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, he's blowing his stack, then he's learned to leave the house for about 2-3 hours, and then he's okay. So I'm thinking that at least he wanted to solve the problem. And he did.
Exactly. Did he say to you at any point, Joe, I feel that everything's just about perfect, it's just about 1 degree off?
Oh no, he didn't complain about the 2-3, but he did say that things were perfect. I mean, I said, do you think together? Because that's the main thing. It's the harmony of the minds, that you want a full intimacy. I think I might be wrong. It could be that Scorpios aren't capable of such a thing. Don't even suggest that. They got to keep their little secrets. But that is one of the, incidentally, that's one of the major things of the whole birthday compass idea, is that anything you assert exists a contradiction from another birthday.
Exactly.
You can't cover all of it.
That's right. And as with astrology also. So it's not
All
like
the
I'm
12
trying,
different schools.
It's not like more. That doesn't include Vedic or
yeah.
sidereal or Chinese. That's just
12
12 main schools in Western. Okay, but that aside, it's not like I'm trying to find the weak links in your thought process, because I think it has relevance and usefulness. I just am trying to understand, kind of systematically understand the system.
Well, I'll say
No
one
pun
extra
intended.
thing. One reason for zeroing in close to the actual number is so you can be accused of numerology. No, I was kidding. No, the one reason I hate numerology. I want this for the record. I hate numerology. This is not numerology. I could maybe take a September 9, maybe on the 11th. But,
so there's one exception.
no, I'll take a 9. I would. 9 I could take. Maybe 11. 12, wait, what's so far?
Don't do it. But
what was the question?
I'm just trying to use common sense here. No, it makes sense to me that if it's direct. Well, let me go back. 3 months.
I had a new argument.
Okay, but 3 months in neither direction is not good. Conflict. 6 months is harmonious.
And the same is kind of harmonious.
What about 9? What about 8?
No,
What about
9 is
7?
the same as 3. The only other good one is 4, and
Which is?
5 is up for grabs. I don't know.
Okay, but you see, I mean, if you're going
Well,
to
I've
put together a
considered the whole
system,
thing. Yeah.
but you've been
4,
looking at this since 1970.
4. Well, I mean, it's a hard problem. Where is the harmony? So, yeah. So would you real harmony?
True.
Please step forward.
Exactly. That would
mean,
make
to
life
say-
a lot easier.
Plus, the birthdays of the parents is a player.
Definitely.
Now, I told you the one story
From the
about my
point of view
mother.
of total biology, which is, something that I've been, I've
Totally
integrated
into,
into
yes.
my own work, as well as a therapist, as well as the work of, I've been putting on workshops in New York for the past 4 years on this thing called total biology.
Oh.
It takes a look at generational conflicts as to understand current physical distress or illness. This is really important, and I think your audience would really appreciate this amazing subject. And it was developed by an MD, PhD, Dr. Claude Sabbah, S-A-B-B-A-H. Really interesting stuff. Anyway, just kind of not to go on about it, but just to say, there have been studies that show that illnesses are intergenerational, not genetic, as people think, oh, I have the genes for, no, but psychogenetic, that there are emotional disorders, distress, that lead to physical illness, and everybody sort of knows it in their gut. You know, when the clouds are out of the way, people go, I know why I have that. But it's intergenerational. So from the point of view of what you're talking about with the solar birthday understanding, you could go back not just to parents, but to grandparents, to uncles and aunts that might be relevant in the person's life. So you can have a larger family tree picture of influences.
I'm in, brother. Yeah, they're all players.
You know, exactly. So, and
but when it comes to gravity I put in the category of pathetic, just for officially speaking.
Which is to say what? What do you mean when you say that?
If all you can argue is that there's gravitational differences happening here and there, then
between the varying celestial bodies.
It's like gravity. Come on.
I wasn't going to put
right. No, so I'm just officially speaking.
Oh, okay, fine.
Like,
officially, right.
Not blaming on you.
No, I understand.
But that one, I just like. But the possibility of saving astrology's grip on the birthday factor versus the possibility of gently placing the subject of birthday within the trusting arms of society. The skeptical gaze.
Sure. No, look, first of all, it's very funny for me to be a so-called defender of astrology, since I'm so far from being an astrologer, and my own knowledge, I feel, I'm very aware of its limits in this domain. Really, but I feel a natural appreciation for it, and I think a lot of what I happen to know has come from just a close listening to people I know and respect. Bhavani Ma being one of them. I don't know if you ever knew her, but she was a friend of Alan's and mine, and many others. And she used to sit in Barnes & Noble and do readings. She was sort of like a Brooklyn Jewish woman who became a monk.
You could feel it.
Yeah. Oh my God. She said that I myself was a broken planet. That I was she said, I've never seen a chart like this. She said, you're the planet. You're into so many things because you're reassembling the pieces of the planet. Really interesting. But also Monty Taylor of more recent ilk.
Now wait, how has that helped you? Now let's just go back to the
It has. It has helped me.
Now,
because
have you brought the pieces together?
Yes.
I mean, how do you imagine using that symbolism?
A madman.
Yeah.
Sort of like you. I am a madman.
So you accept that about yourself?
Yes, and but it's given me another vantage point to understand my tendencies, because I consider myself truly holistic, and when people use the word holistic, they don't really mean holistic. They mean partial. When they say holistic, it means if they're a practitioner, they focus on nutrition, or they focus on one. But essentially, it's almost like a substitute of drugs with nutrients. I don't see the system that way. It's still the pathology model from my point of view. I'm much more Chinese-oriented, much more Buddha nature-oriented. That being out of inner harmony, being outside of Buddha nature, it causes distress and can lead to the outpicturing of physical illness. That's where I come from. But holistic is not just within the domain of the body-mind. It goes to include Earth Mother.
It's a good picture.
Is it a good picture?
I don't know. I can't see.
You know, I don't really look. But it's the Mother Earth. So I'm involved, Joe, in projects having to do with my own practice where I see clients and work with stress, work with relationships, etc. And I do use astrology, as a matter of fact, because it gives me an immediate understanding. And it's the sun sign primarily that I use to get an orientation of the way they think, because I'm familiar enough that I know something enough about each sign to be like slightly dangerous. So when they tell me that they're a Capricorn, I go, aha, interesting. Okay, so if they speak certain ways, I'm understanding from the birthday point of view. This is interesting. This is fun for me. Something of their orientation in nature. But when I say holistic, I want to take the next step and say I'm also very involved in environmental projects having to do with creating sustainability and kind of a new wave of community that's based on green technologies and a holistically oriented body-mind unity. So my life consists, when I say a better world, I don't mean just a better inner world, I mean a better outer world as well. So I'm deeply involved in the environmental movement as a result. Most people who do what I do, like as a practitioner, a therapist, what have you, are not also simultaneously involved in the larger aspects of the holistic perspective, which is going as far as the earth herself.
Global activism.
Yeah. Eco-psychology.
Well, what I'm hearing here...
Does that make sense to you?
Well, the way, yeah. What I'm hearing is that why settle for a peace when you can get it all? And you're into a totality of engagement, a totality of understanding.
Exactly. Of which our politics, our social order, our economics are subsets of a certain state of mind which is corruptive of our relationship to Earth. And if we set that aright, a relationship with Earth as our mother, and the way a child would respect and love his or her mother, if we could renew that relationship to Earth as a living, intelligent, motherly being, everything, I believe, would be set right in our relationships to each other and to our economic life, political, social. Does that harmonize?
That provoked me to this extent, that for people to tune in on the love they have for their mother is a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's part of why I do the work that I do as a therapist, to help people clear that and, interestingly, transcend it. I feel Freud left off, and most of psychology has left off, at one so-called biological mother, or stepmother for that case. I say that's step 1 and 2. We need to go further back to nature herself.
How about, instead of loving the earth as your mother,
yes,
how about loving the earth as your wife?
Yeah. That would lead to some interesting situations that I was looking to kind of sidestep. But, Earth as lover, Earth as beloved, I think that has a place too. I was being safe. You caught me. But anyway, you get the gist. And that's, so if you think what Bhavani said to me of a planet reassembling, it's just interesting.
And no, actually, the idea of love itself does come from the parental love. And we're building on that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you just say love the earth, period, and don't bring in the other, it's a good PR. But you're right. You're pointing to what we're really talking about.
It is she who actually sustains us. Our local...
We do have a relationship like mother to the earth. It's
biological
true.
Mother. Literally,
Yeah.
she comes and goes. She's great, but when she passes, I mean, then what? Do we die? No. But Mother Earth is there after our personal mother passes.
You know,
It's interesting.
I was going to, I held myself back at one point while I was talking early on about, I won't go there. And here's where I was going to go there. I can say it now.
Go now.
Is that this is another occasion where there is a logic to your saying love the earth because she is our mother. But if she is our mother, then what about the sun? Or where I was going to go before is the Son of God. But I'm spelling it S-U-N. And I do blow people's mind saying Son of God and then saying about you. Because it is probably built into Christianity that they were playing off that reality in some ways themselves. I am the way, the truth, and the light, and all that. So
you just aired Zeitgeist recently. I mean, what are you talking?
Right,
and Zeitgeist is just a beautiful, I feel,
argument,
summation of the understanding and appreciation of the solar archetype. My friend Hugh Calmer. Do you know Hugh?
I got to go see Zeitgeist again.
Yeah, I tell you, that was powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. I mean, I feel that the way they did a lot of that original work at the beginning of it, having to do with the understanding of the solar archetype, is very
And here I'm saying Chaim Maccabee, where I could be saying Zeitgeist, as far as an argument that Christianity is a kind of arbitrary con game.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's one in a litany, in a list of solar worship, if you will.
Or how can I put it? Cultural artifacts that involve deliberation in the people who had the powers within the culture to do some
Exactly. You know, I always see Christianity as a younger brother or cousin of Judaism, of course. But I also look at Judaism as a younger brother or son of Egyptian culture, religion, and intelligence.
There's a connection.
There's a connection. Guess where we left? Egypt. There's the falafel, incredible.
Recently I got involved, in fact I'm putting them on the internet as we speak now on YouTube, a guy named Shlomo Sand, S-A-N-D. And this guy has been on the Israeli bestseller list for 19 weeks for the proposition that the phrase Jewish people, which is the basis of the logic of the State of Israel as a haven for the Jewish people, that he argues that the Jewish people never were exiled, and therefore they're the Palestinians, and the rest of us who think we're Jews and have a continuous line from the good old days with Moses and all that, it's a fake. That we're converted something else's, and needless to say, it's not a popular proposition.
Well, it's interesting if you look at the distinction between Sephardim and Ashkenazi.
Right.
And that's something I've been saying for the longest time. Do you know what I mean?
Why the branching?
Yeah. I mean, what was it? The 13th Tribe by Arthur Kessler. Really interesting. Basically, the Ashkenazi Jew, of which you and I are members, if not card-carrying, at least so-called by blood and genetically, and culturally, was a conversion that occurred in Eastern Europe long ago. But the Jews that came out of Egypt, if you abide by the Exodus story, etc., were Egyptian Jews. They were Abrahamic, they're Sephardim. They're Middle Eastern. They're not Eastern European, Ukrainian, on and on. It's interesting. I mean, if you go to the Middle East...
He argues that. I mean, you're right.
Okay.
That's where he says how could we be so European about it?
Right.
So there must have been somebody somewhere of the Europeans who said, I like this Jewish trip, and I could spread it around.
That's right. And Kessler goes into that whole story.
Well, Christianity...
In the 13th, 13th tribe.
Christianity does kind of set it up for Jewish revivalism in a way, because it does carry with it the text of the Old Testament after Gutenberg, at least.
Totally.
Didn't have it before then, though.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the ones who, and that's about when this guy dates the rise of Judaism in Europe to some extent. But I personally don't buy it. I think that there were Jews who gathered in different places after the Roman invasion, and there were slaves. They were taken as slaves, and some of them won their freedom from slavery. Once they were taken as slaves, they said, look, if you think I'm a good slave, I'll work for you even better. You give me freedom, And they said, you're such a good worker.
What a deal.
So, I mean, to imagine a Jewish
I'll take
slave.
two.
Really? What were the Jews like as slaves?
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine?
If you ask Jackie Mason, my boss would be nowhere without me.
But
I made the company.
I heard that
Schmuck.
Judaism was popular in Rome in the period like 300 BC. There was already, and what they liked about it was the monotheism part. And they also liked this idea
Keeps things simple.
of not bowing to the state, but standing even taller.
Thou shalt not worship idols.
So that's
No, I think that's great.
and that's where Christianity already blew
Oh,
it.
interesting.
Christianity is actually a violation of the first of the Ten Commandments up front. It's like, what? You gotta be a dummy not to read. You didn't see that.
It's a very good point. Exactly. Exactly.
All right,
I mean,
so
just to make Jesus not Jewish and to make him blonde. I mean, to me, blue-eyed is just what such a slap in the face of reality. Again, he was, had to have been a rugged Sephardic Jew who is not indistinguishable from a Palestinian or, a Turk, right?
Wow.
Syrian. I mean, the cloaking of Jesus as a blonde, blue-eyed guy. And everybody tends to forget that he was a rabbi. He was a swarthy, dark-haired, curly, Have you been to Israel? Do you know what people look like?
Well, no, actually, in terms of actually picturing Jesus, which you have already developed in some way, so you're sort of comfortable imagining Jesus in it.
Yeah, because I looked, and I said, well, wait a minute. How could it be? Can't be that it's this Europeanized thing.
But it could be something. So you're picturing something. What do we know?
I am picturing
You want to quit, or you're going to...
I should get going.
Okay.
I mean, if you need 5 more minutes.
No,
to
we got
finish the show.
112 already. What can you do?
Fine, Jason.
Just